quite warm in here.
It's the pressure cooker. All these hard-hitting questions.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Perfect.
See, we're even in sync.
Yeah. I thought we could just start somewhere by me telling the story of the first time I met Ange. And it was downwind foiling. So the first time I met Ange, I went for my downwind foil from Swanee. I think I was trying to go to Scarborough. And I was about to come in at Scarborough and I see someone else coming past just off my right-hand side. And I like kind of foiled over closer. This was like when I was kind of learning. I was a bit funky.
Doing well.
Doing well, but learning. I thought you were doing much better than me at that stage. I got right close next to her and she goes, "Oh my God, how are you going? Oh, this is sick. What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, who's this lady? I didn't even know that any girls were downwind foiling in Perth at this stage." And so she convinced me to not come in at City Beach, but instead go to
Sorrento, I think.
Sorrento. Yeah, sorry. Did I go all the way to Sorrento that day?
Yeah.
Okay, that was my first Sorrento run then. And unfortunately, my dad didn't get the memo. Andrew was on her watch trying to let him know, but it all came through as just gargled sounds from a unknown caller.
Yeah, classic.
So, yeah, that was my first experience of Ange. And since then, I think she's lived up to that reputation every single time. Full frother.
Yeah, I learnt from her.
Yeah, learnt from the best.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Yeah, that sounds like you just convincing people to do silly things.
Keep going.
Maybe from there we can ask, how did you get into foiling?
You go, Ange.
Yeah, so,
Stitch you.
so I think it was SUP, like I used to surf and then SUP Downwind Race. And then we went on a trip, me and a bunch of girls, to the Maldives, and James Casey was our coach and he brought the foil along and then was just towing us around, and ever since just getting up the first time I was like,
you're hooked.
This is it. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
So that was it.
And you've just progressed just to be a weapon from there.
Slowly progressed from there.
And so when did you start downwinding foiling?
Downwind. Well, Krystal and I did it. We were doing it about 3 years ago on the wing together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started with the paddle like 2 seasons ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. How about you, Krystal? What was the first time?
Oh, God, I think I got into foiling really reluctantly.
Yeah.
No sort of paddle background and no real competent swimming ability. Like I grew up in the goldfields in Western Australia, so really arid desert, no water. Pretty sure this whole swimming side of things only really came to fruition when I met Julian, because he's just a tadpole.
Yeah.
But it was around 2018 when Julian actually started getting into foiling, and he was prone foiling back then, like on random gear, because there was just nothing about it at the moment. And he would be surprising, to everyone here in WA, like the only person out at deep six.
Yeah.
Now it's just a cesspool of everyone trying to fight for a wave.
Yeah, indeed.
So, and I was FIFO at that time, so I was really home like very limited amount of days per week. So FIFO being fly in, fly out. So I was working up in the Pilbara. So I was kite surfing, and so any time that I was home and there'd be like downwind activities, I was just going to kite surf, because I was in no way going to get on one of those things and look like a twat at that stage. I thought Julian looked a bit ridiculous on a foil, so I was like, I'm not going to take that on. But then 2019, we decided to buy a sailboat, and Julian, like we bought a boat in the Med and had this ridiculous idea to sail at home, which we eventually did. But Julian brought all his foiling gear on that trip.
Yeah.
Again, it was all like go foil stuff, and he was sort of finding waves, but again, I wasn't really interested in it. And it ended up being in the Caribbean when we managed to cross the Atlantic Ocean, got to the Caribbean, and we had nothing else to do because COVID had hit. So,
oh, wow.
So we were stuck there without a lot to do, and it was eventually he persuaded me to get behind the dinghy on a tow rope on one of the foils, go foils, and his homemade board, and that's eventually how I sort of got into it. And short story long, we ended up being able to get home because we figured we'd just leave the boat in the Caribbean while we waited out COVID, and we came home for 2 years. And in that space, I decided to try the whole gig at wing foiling. So
Yep.
started prone surf foiling and getting into wing foiling and taking advantage of the easterlies with the winter periods. I was doing downwinders in the river.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't met Ange yet, but I was like sort of out at deep 6 and wind came in and I went out winging and I like saw this chick and I was just like, oh my gosh, there's another girl. I've never seen another girl like those cartoons where your eyes like pop out of their head. I was like, oh, what? And Dan, her husband, he was standing up on the grass and we all just sort of bumped into each other and I'm just staring. I was like, I've got to go say hi. Like I'm all nervous.
And you're both wing foiling out at Deep Six?
Yeah, you were wing foiling and I was just like, oh my goodness, we have to be mates because there's no one else. Like there's just no girls doing this. So we eventually connected and started doing downwind runs on the wing and but I think the boys were sup foiling, and that was, I don't know if it was your goal at that stage, but it was certainly mine. I was like, oh, the wing is cool, but that's the pinnacle to get to sup foiling. So every time I was downwind foiling on using the wing, I was just trying to use that as the opportunity to learn to read waves and eventually build up to trying to sup foil. So went back to the boat. Eventually, COVID sort of cleared up, as everyone knows. So we went back to finish off the leg from the Caribbean to Australia on our sailboat and, really took advantage of the skills and went foiling passes in some really remote places and I started really enjoying the foiling experience which is a stark contrast to when we first started because I had zero interest in it.
Yeah.
And then as we were away, I just heard we were obviously checking in with everyone. Everyone was telling us the gossip in our foil group, oh, there's this new dude, Hugh, he's really good, real nice. So we got the gossip on you. But then the boys were super proud. They were telling, Julie and I when we'd check in, Angie's getting further. We got she's going from here to Swanee. I know Angie's doing runs to City Beach. And I was just like, that's so sick. I cannot wait to get home and do these runs with Ange because there's no way in hell I'm staying on the wing and letting her do all this stuff without me. So we got home last November and I think January I got into downwind sup foiling and the rest is history because it's super fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think I probably heard it from you, Ange, quite a lot that as soon as Julian and Krystal got back, I was going to have no spare time anymore because these two were full frothers.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
We were all a bit worried.
Yeah, Julian's a bit of a foil pest.
Yeah. Ange, what do you remember about the first time you guys met?
Me and Krystal.
Yeah.
Love it first time. Cheers.
No, it was it was sort of like how Krystal described. We met, we sort of saw each other in the water and then we're standing on the grass at Deep Six do you want to be friends? And the
awesome.
boys were sort of trying to set us up too.
Yeah, they were.
They were like, oh, this is great.
Did they know each other at that stage or?
Yeah, they
they'd
had
all been
connected.
Okay.
Yeah, but there was, because all the boys, just sort of hit it off you boys compared to us girls fully get into nerd chat real soon with foils. So, but I remember a message coming from from Julian being like, hey, I've spoken to Dan. I've hooked you and Ange up for a downwind run. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah. Awesome.
And we used to have a lot of fun on the wings too.
Yeah.
We had a full season where the boys would be paddling and we'd be winging along behind them.
Just hooting and laughing and listening to music and they were my favourite sort of wing days when Ange and I would go out. They were my best runs. So.
Just jumping in from the editing room to let you know the next clip coming up is completely raw audio from out in the water. All the sound is coming from a phone that Ange has in a waterproof case. So have a listen. So what was were you trying to drop the wing at all doing those downwind runs?
Yeah,
or what
definitely.
Was kind of
Yeah, so we were both, I was the same. I was still thinking about sup as the ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm.
So trying not to use the wing as much as we could. Yeah. It's good.
What do you think the learning curve was like to get into winging? How long did it take you guys to get the knack for it? Was it a struggle or did it come kind of quickly? How did you find
I found it pretty quick.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 sessions, but then it was you just that you weren't necessarily good after 3 sessions, but doing it.
Yeah.
But a really steep learning curve.
Yeah. I felt like once it clicked.
Mhm.
Like, and I think it took me a bit longer because of FIFO, like just not having the daily repetition of being able to go out.
Yeah.
So I was really confined to like weekends. That
Uh-huh.
it took me a longer time than what I expected. So naturally, like everyone in foiling's probably got really frustrated with things. But then once it clicked and once I got up, I was like, what the hell? Why was it so hard?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of, it felt like, yeah, it's push, push, push. And then once you go, you just sort of exponentially like get better. I don't know if you found the same.
Yeah, I remember feeling really out of control at first.
Yeah.
Like just full kamikaze.
Popping wings.
Yeah.
Me and Ange getting rolled in the surf.
Yeah. I think that was after more than a few sessions.
I feel like everyone at some stage has come in at like Trig or Scarborough and been destroyed.
And rolled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not the easy. A wing is the worst thing to come in on, isn't it? Because you got like a balloon and a knife with you.
Yeah.
It's
definitely.
not the.
Yeah, it's not wise coming
No.
in.
Yeah,
in big
on
surf.
a big shory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew.
Do you guys want to just maybe talk through those downwind runs that first year? Do you have a favorite moment from those runs together? Can you remember anything specific, or is it all just kind of a blur?
Yeah, I mean, on the wing, I don't know, it sort of just started to click towards the end of summer. So I just remember having some really clean runs where you just never fall off.
Mm-hmm.
And that for me was like a really good qualitative, view of like how a run was. But to be honest, like I said before, there was some, I think collectively the ones where Ange and I were just let loose, and me and her would just dictate where we go in, and we'd be listening to just ridiculous music and just talking and singing the whole way.
Yeah.
They were my funnest runs, because I think foiling can be a little bit serious sometimes, and we certainly saw that in the last month.
Yeah.
And I think just being able to reflect on those moments where we actually just super enjoyed the company and yeah, just the conditions was my favourite.
Yeah. Do you think they're your favourite moments then? Not like the serious moments?
Oh,
Or
yeah,
I don't know.
definitely.
Do you have many serious moments foiling? Because to be honest, I don't know if I have that many serious ones either. Like we love to talk about, pretend we're serious, but I don't know if we actually are.
Yeah.
No, I try to, and I just think, what's the point? You're just wasting a good run being super focused and not having a hoot.
Yeah, you're out there to have fun and do something
Yeah,
exciting, isn't it?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like we're all little kids sometimes, just hopping around.
Looking like twats.
Yeah. Okay, on a slightly more serious note than Ange, I know you went through like a whole range of different foils while we are. I'm sure Krystal might have been up to date on this, or at least while I was there, you went from Go foil to Axis to Code,
Lift at one point.
Lift.
It was the boys. Yeah, this is like this thing that
Yeah.
really annoys us about them. They're always changing our gear under our feet, and they know this, and they're always in trouble for it. But Dan would I'd start getting the hang of a rig, and then he'd be like, "You've grown out of that, sell it, and get me a new one." And then suddenly I'm riding something different, and
Yeah, what was that like?
painful.
Yeah,
Yeah, sort of sets you back
a bit.
Yeah.
Do you think in the long run it's worth it, or what's your thoughts on it now, looking back? At, the
sometimes
process?
it's good to be pushed onto something different,
Yeah,
and then you enjoy it. But yeah,
it was a struggle initially.
it was a struggle. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Krystal? What gear did you start, or did you stick with the same gear, or did it keep changing?
No, I started with Go foil, the big stuff, and and that like all the foiling sort of gear just changed rapidly. So you were getting some of the P wings out, and they were pretty cool. And jumped onto Lift after that. So I was on the Lift like 170, 120, and I loved it. After coming from Go foil, just felt like it was just so smooth and super nice. And we stuck with that for a while. But then, obviously the boys got onto Code, and pretty cool change, riding something local made by guys that we knew, and really like the range and ability, the conditions that you can take the foils out in was a big change, coming from Lift and I think Go foil as well. So definitely have an appreciation of like when you're riding different gear, what your style is and what you appreciate. So I definitely look back on those days fondly where we were riding different stuff to get an appreciation for gear that you're riding today.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool to hear. Maybe we can go to this Hawaiian trip, and I'd love to know about both your experiences and what it was like to be a girl foiling over in Hawaii. What's the scene like over there? I feel like we often get covered by all this media that the guys are posting. It's like post after post after post. So what was it like over there for you two?
I think I sort of went over maybe 10 days before Ange did, and I'd been over 2 years before. And even that 2 years ago, I was really struck by the number of females doing it and how good that sort of community was. And I was really inspired and impressed by it. But I was really more impressed by the age. Like, you've got Annie Starr, you've got Gabriella, like they're the young pups on the scene over there. But there was this older contingent of ladies like Tomoko, Devon, Kathy Shipman, Andre, if you want to class her in that. Like, that was really impressive. So to go back this year, and interested to hear your thoughts on it. But yeah, it's a really cool scene. It's quite inclusive, and there was a much larger volume of females learning to sup downwind. So it was cool to connect in with everyone that you'd been watching from afar for the last 2 years. But yeah, definitely a much bigger scene and much larger range in terms of ages as to who's doing it in the sort of female sort of area.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was good. It was a really friendly, inclusive scene, and everyone's kind of jumping in the car with each other and doing runs together, and it was cool.
Compared to like Perth, how big is the community over in Hawaii, would you say?
It's hard to say because we were there for race week, so a lot of people were international.
I think on Maui there's, and I could be so wrong, but it felt like maybe similar to Perth, like in terms of size. Maybe a little bit less. But yeah, it's kind of hard to tell. Even in Perth, like I don't know who's doing the runs, but I imagine there's about 50 or so people in Perth. And it felt like the same before the race week sort of took over, that there was a similar sort of number.
Awesome. So what were both of your goals going over there? What did you want to do in that month or so that you're away?
I just wanted to finish M2M.
Okay, yeah.
That was my goal.
And you achieved that goal?
Yeah.
Did
it. And then it turned out it wasn't like as hard as I'd sort of made up in my brain.
Yeah.
I was just like, 45 Ks, it's going to be, I don't know what I thought was going to happen, but.
Yeah. So what was the week leading up to that race for you, Ange? Did you do the other race as well? Was the paddle and mule?
Yeah, I did paddle and mule. And then, just we were just like doing laps of Molokai in the week before. It was great.
Yeah.
And did you learn anything on those laps? What was
I think
the takeaway?
so. Yeah. I think we all improved a lot over those kind of couple of weeks before. Yeah.
And then coming to the M2M, what was the like morning prep for the M2M race like?
It's mayhem because you have to like paddle all because we were staying on Molokai that night, so we had to like bring all our gear down to the beach and then like paddle it. We had to. Oh, it's jet skis. Yeah. There was a few jet skis that were like taking the gear out to boats.
Oh wow! To get onto the actual boats for the M2M.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you had to like, drag all your suitcases down to the beach.
Yeah.
Like find a jet ski, take it out. So all of that mayhem was kind of crazy, and then everyone's like debating which foils to use, and there's all that craziness going on as well. And everyone kept saying that the wind was really light too.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of freaking out about that, but.
We
all kind of got there in the end.
Okay,
Yeah.
so could you talk me through that morning? Like, what was the steps that you took to get out there? You didn't take them out on the jet skis with the cover on, or what was?
Oh no, so that was like, so you kind of rigged up your board and your foil, left it on the beach, but then you had to get all your bags for the next that you were traveling with to Molokai. So it was like getting those on the jet ski onto a boat.
Oh, and so there was a boat that chartered it all back for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and there's only 2 jet skis running, so it was all like a bit of mayhem.
It's actually an interesting thing I thought about, that you go from staying in Maui and then all of a sudden you're staying in Molokai. Is that right?
Yeah.
And your way of getting there is foiling from one island to the other. Yeah. That's a pretty surreal experience, is it?
Oh, it's super cool. And then like Dan obviously went the next step from Molokai to Oahu as well.
So you just keep your kind of island bouncing, no planes needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you had all your luggage. Like Julian, Donnie and I, who were doing the leg, were coming back. So we just had to foil and take a backpack.
Yeah.
That was put on the
much
luggage.
smarter.
Yeah. But you guys were going. So everyone, the luggage, they had like a dedicated luggage boat.
Yeah.
But that just got chock-a-block because everyone, they didn't really forecast the people that were like having to take their whole life to the next race. So yeah, you guys got kind of stitched with that, and that boat had filled up. So we ended up having to try and find another escort boat to just take it, and we were fortunate enough that Army Armstrong.
Oh, okay. Wow.
He was like, "Oh yeah, just put your stuff on our boat."
Awesome.
That's so
nice.
not how he sounds. But
Is that a Kiwi accent?
oh, I think it was.
Yeah.
So we got in his boat and
Yeah.
just put our stuff on. But yeah, we just had a backpack and our
Yeah.
cases because we were coming back.
Yeah.
It's not the stress you want before you're about to do like potentially the longest downwind foil you've done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had you guys ever done 45Ks before? I've never done.
No, I hadn't.
Oh, I gave that
Oh, you did the same
40Ks
run,
a
didn't
crack. Yeah, I did it. Well, I tried to
week
do
before?
a run with Reedy and Julian back in Bustleton,
Okay.
but I had a really bad preparation. I was not prepared to do 40Ks.
But didn't you guys do M2M?
Oh yeah,
like a few days
the week 2 weeks prior, we just thought we'd do a practice one, but we'd been in Maui for 3 days, and I thought, oh yeah, we'll just go out and give it a crack. But it was a bit of a mare because, yeah, we went with a super fast group, and I was just trying to get there and just scope out the run.
Okay.
And I fell off in the channel, and the boat captain was a bit. I don't think he'd really been exposed to downwind foiling, so he didn't realise like the process in terms of paddling up and having to wait for a bit. So he freaked out and chucked me in the boat, and I was kind of dark about it.
Oh no. Okay, wait. Do you want to
yeah.
just elaborate a little? Let's rewind back and start that story again. So
I never
this is
heard this story.
a week before going out. A week before the M2M.
Yeah,
race?
so they do some practice runs now. So
Yeah.
Zane Schweitzer, who's on Maui, he's a legend.
Yeah.
Has a boat, and he was just offering like 10 people who want to do a practice run to practice M2M run. They could do it. You pay like a couple of $100, and he'll organise to have an escort boat, and you just cross over, and you usually pair up with someone. So naturally, it was me and Julian and a few other people. So there was like Kane and Gabby, Andrea, Shep. Some really cool names that were just doing this practice run. But we'd landed, Julian and I had got to Maui 3 days before, and I wasn't really like super serious about it. I was like, oh yeah, we'll do it. Like we'll just cruise along, and it's not a race. Like it's just about navigating and getting used to the water.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any R wings on me. Like I wasn't up until recently. I haven't been the R series convert with code, so we only had S series stuff. So I was like, I'm not going to ride the 1130, and it was really good conditions too. There was like white caps, and it would have been about 20 knots and stuff. So it was good. There were really good bumps. So I decided for the first time ever to use the 850S.
Wow. Okay, that's a jump down.
Yeah, especially because I've only really been on the 1130 and the 980, but I was like, oh, sweet. This is we're fine. So I jumped on the 850, and I was hooning. Like I did like 15 kilometers, and I was cruising. Like I was having a really good time. Julian and I were just paired up. Everyone had shot ahead, but I thought, oh, well, the escort boat's watching us. Like if someone comes down, they'll just wait, and they'll just muster you up and follow you. But I ended up coming off in the channel, and it was pretty big. Like it was pretty confused, like because you've got swell wrapping around from the north, swell wrapping around from the south, and wind, and there's a northerly current as well that picks up different bumps.
Yeah.
So I was just chilling. I was just waiting there and like mentally being like, oh, you're fine. You're going to get going. Julian had sat down too because we were paired up. And while I'm sitting there, the boat's like hovering around, and he can see me, and he's coming back. He's like, you okay? And I was like, yeah. Just leave me alone. I'm going to get going. I just need time. Like I'll get going. I don't want to get in the boat.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to finish it. I wanted to experience the full 45 Ks. And I went to get going, and it had been like 5 minutes or something, and the boat was in front of me, and it was wrong timing. He just went in front, and I just copped all his wash as I got going, and then I fell off again. And so he was like, nah, get in the boat. Like people, the front group are like 5 minutes from the harbour. Like you got to get in, they're going to be waiting for you. And they weren't. They were still ages off, like that sort of lead pack. So naturally, poor Julian he copped it with me. So he had to get in as well, even though he's really capable. And so we ended up getting in the boat, and then when we got to the Kamala section, which is like the last 20 Ks, I'd say, we managed to convince the captain to let Julian go in, and then I managed to somehow weasel my way back into the water closer to the end.
Okay, nice.
Because I was like, I'm not going to come in on boat. I look like an absolute loser. So, but I was pretty dark about it because I just thought, well, it's an escort boat. We sort of paid the money.
And they wouldn't be waiting long either.
No, they wouldn't have cared. But I think I know the captain had responsibilities, and I think he was quite stressed, and I just understood that where he was coming from. But
Yeah.
it rattled me because coming into MTM, I was like, don't fall off in the channel. Don't
Yeah.
fall off. Like, you're screwed if you do that.
Did you fall off or did you make it the whole way?
I actually fell off 20 Ks in, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, you idiot. Like, you're stuffed. Like, but I'd focused like the whole 2 weeks ahead. I really tried to hone in mentally on just relaxing myself if I came in and watching people, you know, fly past you. And so it actually came into effect. Like, I just remained calm, and within 3 minutes I got up and going in the channel and didn't come down.
Nice.
So I fell down once.
That's pretty impressive too. Like the whole way, that's a solid effort.
Yeah, and I was stoked. I mean, I was conserving a lot with
Yeah.
that M2M. I wasn't racing, and I was on the 960R actually, which was the first time riding that
Yeah.
wing as well. And I just found like you couldn't stall the thing. It's such a comfortable, easy wing to ride in some sort of challenging conditions, and the wing did the work. So massive credit to the 960 for getting me to Molokai safe and sound.
How are you, Ange? Did you make it all in one run, or
I
what
fell
was the...
off twice as well.
Yeah?
Yeah. But
What was your thought process when you fell off? Was it fear?
nah, not really.
Nah.
Just get up.
Yeah. Easy. How long
Such
did
a
it
bad
take?
Back up. Yeah. How long? It took me
Yeah.
about 2 hours 20, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually one thing I was worried about leading up to it, because they said it started at 11:15 and then they were going to pull everyone out at 2:30. So you
Yeah.
only had 2 hours 45?
Right.
And in my
okay.
head I was like, I'll probably take, sometime around 2:30. So
And
I was
so
like, fuck, what are they...
most people made it to the end, or
Yeah,
like,
well,
were some
actually,
people...
some people took like 4 hours, so they didn't actually pull people
okay.
out in the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
But I was like, how gutted would you be if
Yeah, that'd be
you're like
terrible.
5 kilometres off and you got pulled out?
I'd be flat.
That'd be
Yeah.
horrendous.
But I had a really strange race as well because my Garmin wasn't working properly.
Yeah.
So
Were you using that to show your line, or what was the
No,
Garmin
actually,
for?
it wasn't a Garmin. It was an Apple Watch. I just had Strava on. It was telling me how many kilometres I'd been.
Yeah.
But it was in running mode, so I think maybe that was where I went down. But it kept saying I was at 20 Ks.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I could see the finish line. And I was like, what's happened? So, yeah, it stitched me up. In the end, it said I'd only done a 25-kilometre run.
After 45
Yeah.
Ks. Wow.
So
Don't
I was-
trust the watch.
I know, don't
technology,
trust
huh?
the watch. Yeah, I was like conserving and like pacing myself and being like, okay, you're cool.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then suddenly I was at the finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just cruise. Well, it's pretty funny because me, Ange and I, we must have paddled up around the same time, and I knew you were out to my left.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how quickly you get up and then how quickly people disappear as they pick their lines. And so I got going, and then within 10 minutes or something, I just see this person. I was like, oh my God, that's Ange. That's
Wow.
Ange's stance to paddling.
Driving a bus.
Yeah, driving the bus. And I was just so happy from then. I was like, I knew we'd both got up and we
Yeah.
were moving, and we were both on the 960. So I was
Yeah.
like, we are so safe on this wing. And I had her out to my left, and you were just like, Krystal! And I was like, yeah, Angie! You're like, let's do this. I don't know if you're like, let's do this, bitch. You're like, let's do it. So I got a massive boost there, and I knew you were somewhere around me
Yeah.
as I was going through the channel. And when I came down, I instantly looked up to see where you were, but I didn't know where you were. And I was just like, oh my God, Ange, please make it to Molokai, not Lanai.
Oh. Is that a possibility, you think, when you start? Could you see the second island you were heading towards from the start?
You start on the west coast of Maui.
Yeah.
And then you've got to pick your line. Like, you aim for Lanai, or typically a lot of people aim for Lanai for a certain length of kilometres, 20 Ks or something. And then you sort of want to cut into aim between Lanai and Molokai. But yeah, you're definitely looking at the other island, but you're sort of like, can you get disorientated? I don't know, sometimes. If it's the
Could
first
easily
time.
be something I'd do.
Awesome. What was the other thing when you got to the end? Sorry, how did it feel getting to the end of the race, for you guys?
I was stoked.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was good. It
Yeah.
was exciting.
Yeah. Felt like I'd tick the box of something that had been lingering for a couple of years. I
Yeah.
didn't have the 10-year, dream with Dan did, and I love that.
Oh,
People
that's okay.
have had this goal. It's super cool that Dan had that amazing goal for M2O.
Yeah.
But I remember I did it. I did M2M on a wing 2 years prior,
Wow. Okay.
and so and that was cool. But I was just like, imagine doing this on a sup foil. So
Yeah.
that as a bit of a goal was like my thing to finish it. And I just remember coming in and like seeing Donnie and Julian like standing behind the fence, sort of surprised that I'd rocked up. I think Julian was like seriously worried I wasn't going to make it because conditions were marginal at the start.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting on my boat, on my board, just like hands in the air, just like, yeah, we did it. I did it.
Nice.
So yeah, to have the team, and like Julian and Donnie there cheering you in, it was awesome. Good feeling.
That's super awesome. So like it was a box 6 for you as well, Ange?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
there was so much stoke like at the harbour at the end,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
seeing everyone.
Yeah.
Especially because I come in behind everyone, so everyone's there. So I'm like, woohoo.
But it's a cool community event as well. Like they've got kids, taking your board because it's around supporting Molokai and youth and things like that. Really,
Yeah.
like underpins that whole race period. So you get kids that bring you, the flowers and they put that around your neck, and you got, like food and stuff. But yeah, I remember like people like Eric Sturman and a few others like Ed. They were from Eric's from where is he, Oahu and all that. But yeah,
Yeah.
some cool characters were standing there just sort of hollering and hooting you in. So that was kind of cool.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, just the community spirit as well.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't actually hear everyone talks about the race being something for charity. Do you want to describe a bit more like what actually goes on there? Do you know exactly what was happening?
I think Amua's a very big charity event, which is there to raise money for kids who are, sort of struggle with, general things like disabilities, sorry. So that's a big fundraiser there. So that supports kids on Maui from my knowledge. And then with the Molokai side of things, there's the race day, but then there's a follow-up day the day after, which was a rest period for everyone that was doing M2O except us mad dogs because we weren't doing that.
So what did you do that next day?
And John Mann.
And John Mann.
John Mann was like the only person that was doing M2O as well that did this Camelo run.
Yeah,
and he was like standing at the beach going, hold on, aren't you doing M2O?
And we're like, nah. What are you doing here?
But he smashed it, yeah.
But the next day is like they do this shorter run, but it's really about, and they do like a fun run as well, like a bit of an island marathon type thing. And it's just about encouraging like the youth and the kids on Molokai to, continue paddling and, I don't know, just building their confidence. And there's a run that they do down the island and they're sort of actively involved. So it's the most important thing on that day is getting kids in plastic kayaks and doing a little run.
Yeah.
They had a bunch of like sups and kayaks and all kinds of things, and little kids, like some of them were only like 1 year old with floaties on with their mum behind them paddling.
Yeah.
And is this like they paddle down the coast as well, like a downwinder?
they do a mile, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that's not a short distance.
And then Claire was saying that some of the kids that had done that event, like, I don't know, 15 years ago, were doing M2O.
Oh,
like,
wow.
this year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So like people are growing up doing this and then they look forward to doing the M2M later.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's like a grassroots sort of thing, trying to keep culture and those activities alive.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
I know I can't already ask this, but if we could think, what's like one favourite foiling story you guys could think of over the past weeks? Because last week I asked our listeners to send me through DMs.
Sent in?
The only person who sent me through something was Donnie.
Oh.
And he sent me through this much of something.
Oh, that sounds like
That's Donnie.
That's legit, not spam.
Well, maybe it would be good to just read through some of these.
Yeah.
Show everyone that I would really like. You should send through something, and then we can all froth out on it as well.
Good idea.
Because Donnie sent me this message, and then the follow-up message was something along the lines of, "Mate, I'm so frothed out right now. I just need to get in the water." So, he sent me. Couldn't pick one. First one is paddling out for one of my first runs in the ocean with Reedy, way off North Mole, only to have the cops pull up behind me with the sirens going while I tried to paddle up and asking me how I was going. I replied, "Okay, not too bad. You?" They asked if I was confident in my abilities, to which I explained that what I was doing apparently wasn't very common at the time. I responded with, I think so. So when he finally get dropped back up to Reedy, they asked him, if he's your mate, why is he so far ahead of you? So that was his first one.
Oh well, you haven't learned to downwind foil if you haven't been rescued by the
Yeah.
some
someone or the
police
cops,
or
yeah.
like some lifesaver trying to rescue you.
Exactly. Do you have experience with that, Ange?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What happened there?
I think I had them like following me in the buggy, like driving along.
Really?
Yeah, they were driving along the beach as I'm like tracking down the coast,
And which part of the coast was that
like
along?
around Scarborough.
Okay.
Yeah.
What'd they say to you when
think-
you came in?
Oh, just yeah. You were. Oh no, I think they drove back by the time I came in, but I'm sure they've like accosted me on the boat before.
They have the dinghy, like someone at
Yeah.
North Cots definitely followed me. In
Right.
the dinghy, like, and I'm like not in the
Go
right
away.
best mood. Like if anyone knows me, knows that I absolutely tee off when I can't do something. So I'm like,
Oh,
don't
yeah.
you dare come near me. And then I was like, I'm all good, and you hear them going, like, take the dinghy back upwind.
Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be the worst. Driving a dinghy back upwind is horrible.
Yeah,
Has it happened to you, Hugh?
I haven't had one exactly like that. I've had the cops zoom by and knock me off, like trying to, like I think they'd had someone fallen in front of me, and
Yeah.
I was like kind of coming up behind them, and then they zoomed up to get to them,
Yeah.
and the wake just obliterated me out of the water. And that's the only one I've had happen to me so far.
No, I think foiling stories, I feel like I've got a lot, but in terms of the best feeling was probably just the start of this year and just getting up on foil.
Yeah.
It's still so fresh to me. And I think because everyone had been doing it, you guys are, I think you were still in Australia, and we've got just the thread to talk crap on.
Yeah.
And I'd got going and I'd managed to do the run from like Leighton Beach to Pear HQ, so like just before Cot.
Yeah.
And I got up going and on the 1300, my big pink board, and I was just like, I've done it.
Was that your
Yeah.
first run? Or
It's like my fifth or something
Okay,
run.
fifth, yeah.
Yeah, and I just remember firing off like a message to all the frothers being like, I
Yeah.
friggin' did it. Oh my God, best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
And then everyone getting
Yeah, it all
around you.
blows
So
up.
yeah. So that was probably like obviously when it clicks is like one of the favourites, but I've definitely got a lot of memories of just downwinding and hollering and having such a good time with
Yeah.
everyone. When you're in a group, when you're cruising downwind in a group, that's the moments that I really like, which is different. It's actually quite rare now that I've experienced Maui and like, as we all hang out together, or we get clipped with seaweed, so you're forced to sit down half the time anyway in West
Yeah.
Australia, but like just collectively hanging out and cruising and surfing together is, those downwind runs are
Yeah.
top three.
Yeah, actually, that social run that we did last year when
Oh yeah.
like everyone, like all the flamingo guys and and then there was like boys over from Sydney and stuff.
Yeah.
That was fun. Were you there?
I
Hugh,
think
for
I
that?
might have been. That was the one
Just
where we
to
all lined up.
Swanbourne.
Yeah, from
Yeah.
from Swanbourne, or was it
No,
from
to Swanbourne.
Oh, to
Like,
Swanbourne.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I might have been there.
That
for
was
that
a good one because everyone was kind of together the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Ange? Is that like the favorite, or can you
Oh,
think
that
of
would be
another
my
moment?
Oh, yeah, I can't really think of one. They all just blend into one.
Yeah. Do you think you get into a bit of a flow state when you're out there, or how would you describe the feeling of being
Yeah.
out in the water?
Yeah, sometimes. I
Yeah.
think so. I mean, there's like sometimes it's really nice when when you get sunset and then the whole
Yeah.
water the ocean just turns like pink. I remember one with Julian actually, and it was just magic. And I'm like, it's like being in a dream. Like,
Yeah.
those kind of moments are pretty cool.
Yeah. It's pretty special sometimes. Like you can just feel so free. I feel like there's no other
Yeah.
spot where it's just so like flat. Well, it's not flat because obviously you're riding the bumps, but it's so like open and you
Yeah.
can kind of go anywhere you want,
Yeah.
Yeah.
minus the weed.
Yeah, minus that.
Yeah.
There's one actually. Donnie sent me through one which has both of you guys.
Aw.
It says
Donnie,
filming
Donnie.
Ange and Krystal's faces absolutely light up as they drop down a foil size, which from what you guys have said might not be exactly your reactions.
Not by choice.
Yeah. This is light up.
I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's probably true.
Yeah.
Donnie's been there so Julian knows, he plays the game with it. Like, Julian will tell me to drop down a foil size. And I was like, I'm not an idiot. I'm not doing that. Like, leave
Yeah.
me alone. Stop changing my foils. And then Donnie comes in and he's like, it's a really good idea. Like, this is it. Like, he's the mediator. And then I eventually be conned into dropping down a full size. And those two are just staring at me as I go past. And I try not to give too much away, but they're just like, she's loving it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does feel good. The extra freedom you get from the smaller foil is pretty insane.
Totally. Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to coming into this season? Are there some goals you guys have or things you want to do with foiling this season, I guess?
Yeah, I learned a lot in Hawaii. Prior to Hawaii, I'd probably got to a good base where I was ready to get onto the next stuff. So, like I said before, I was stuck on the 1130 and the 980 and didn't really want to drop down too much without ruining a good run.
Yeah.
So then getting onto the 770, got down to the 770 and, the 850s and stuff like that. So definitely keen for this summer to just go through the range, go through a bit more of the smaller range. And I think try and do some runs down south, I think would be pretty cool. Like those down, longer stretches in ocean that we probably had a bit more practice in with Maui type conditions or Hawaiian type conditions. So give that a crack, certainly. Yep.
Yeah, awesome. How about you, Ange? Anything specific?
No, not really.
Just
get lots
enjoy
of
it.
runs in.
Yeah. One thing that Dan said to me actually in the last podcast, and he says often, is that he finds you move at like 1,000,000 miles per hour. He seems to move pretty quickly as well.
Yeah.
But how do you fit, like, I asked the same question to Dan. How do you fit
it in?
everything in?
I know you asked him that and I was like, I don't know how to answer that. I think just, breaking things down into 5-minute
chunks. Yeah. If we looked at your calendar, would it look pretty like gnarly every single day?
It's pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We sort of just prioritize things like foiling, I guess.
Yeah, true. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How was your perspective of Dan's M2O race? What
it was
emotions
so
were you
exciting.
feeling? Yeah.
Yeah. I was just sort of proud of him and really excited for him because he has worked so hard to get there, and it was it was just a really, really fun day.
Yeah. Awesome. And I really liked the little tech review at the end of the...
Oh, yeah, I know. I should have done more of that. I
Yeah.
wish I did it for M2M, actually. Cause,
all the gears piled on top of each other.
Yeah, and there were so many people running code, which we were so stoked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where'd the inspiration come from to do that? Were you just kind of walking around bored and was like...
walking around.
Wait.
Yeah. No, just because everyone kept joining the live feed. So I was like, these guys are really into this. I'll give them more. And I knew it's what I'd want to see if I was back home.
Yeah,
I'd be
true.
like, show me this gear.
Yeah, show me everything. It really felt like you were there with you. You're like narrating the whole video. It was great.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I look back and I was like, I should have done more stuff.
I know.
Because there's so much different gear to get your eyes on, like boards, masts, foils, like what people are riding. It's pretty interesting, hey, when you bring all the foilers from around the world into one spot. There's a lot to learn.
It's so true. Were you like, did anyone really impress you while you were there? I don't know if that's just a question like someone you could think of who were like, whoa, that was really cool to see. Or...
I just think that as a collective, like for me, just the girls in general over there, like, Gabby's such a nice chick. She's super young. She's we got the opportunity to hang out with her and do some runs, but she just impresses you from like, she's just so humble and just absolutely rips. Like she hangs around you for a little bit, but you just know that she's like, it's stuck in second gear. So like just doing runs with her and I think just really impressed by like those young girls like Annie Star and Gabby, Andrea, like they're just so quick. They are so quick. It's they smoke the boys easily in some of these races and without trying. So I think that was like some of my blown away sort of moments was watching some of the girls. And also Rachel Brunch, she's on Oahu. She's a bit of a silent weapon, but they're just really quick, so the calibre's really high.
Yeah, awesome. Krystal, how about, I'd love to hear about foiling on your trip while sailing, because I feel like that's something I'd love to do in the future, would be go sail around the world, I guess, if that's the way of putting it. But that sounds pretty special and pretty awesome. Yeah.
I mean, the whole experience was amazing. Like it's been definitely adjustment being back on land and missing that freedom. But we pictured this trip of like, free diving, and we pictured this trip of finding surf and kite surfing and
Yeah.
and foil waves. And I think we'd built it up to that much that it was kind of a little bit of a disappointment to some extent on that front, because waves are actually quite difficult to find.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in a sailboat, because typically, like wind and whatnot, you're not anchored in wind, you're anchored in the lee of an island. And so there were like sort of technicalities like that made life hard. Like when we were kite surfing, we would always have to trek to find the wind. And then, foil waves were actually quite difficult to sort of find. But we got to, you go through the Med, it's a little bit tricky to find. You get to the Caribbean, there's a few waves. And I think now with the gear and stuff that we've got and our abilities, we'd probably find a little bit more. But got into the Pacific, and we weren't expecting much. We'd rocked up to the Marquesas after like 32 days at sea. So that was pretty wild. And Julian's parents had come to visit us. And at that
Wow.
stage, we were riding lifts. So Marquesas is just volcanic mountains popping out in the middle of the ocean. Like, it's actually quite breathtaking. But we were on lift, and the boys sent code foils with Julian's parents to French Polynesia, or to the Marquesas where they were meeting us. So we finished this ocean crossing, parents rock up, and we've just got these like brand new toys. It was the 850S at that stage, and we were just like, oh my goodness, we need to find waves
Yeah.
to use this. Like, it's so sick. And so we're really like kids at Christmas, and we stumbled across this beautiful wave on this island of Nukuhiva, or Daniels Bay. I think it was Nukuhiva, Fatahiva, one of them. And we were able to test out these foils in this wave that we just didn't think was ever going to exist. So like foiling in majestic places was definitely a highlight. But just a real challenge to sometimes find the perfect wave for us. But we got to the mecca of foiling, which is Fiji, or water sports, which is Fiji, and that unlocked a lot of fun for us. We spent nearly 3 months there, or maybe 2 months or something.
Yeah.
Just burning a hole in our chart plotter, going back and forth from one of the locations to like Namotu Island.
Yes.
And just doing tow foiling in beautiful blue waters. So we're super spoiled. But cool experience, but just foiling a little bit harder than what we expected, but mesmerising once we got some waves.
What was the worst experience?
I think in terms of finding foil waves on the boat,
or anything, maybe worst experience that you can share. Who knows? Like the
on the
toughest
boat?
thing about being on the boat. Yeah.
Boat
I
life.
imagine
It's
not all sunshine and flowers.
No, boat life is pretty challenging as a lifestyle. Like, it's not what it's always painted out to be, but it's basically just doing maintenance in exotic places. Like, you're always fixing the boat. Not that it's a crap boat or anything, but it's just something that's exposed to the elements. So you generally get you can get pretty beat up with just doing ongoing boat work and having failures and things like that. But I don't know. We just worked through it together, but we've had some pretty crap moments. Like, our autopilot failed, so that is automatic steering for your boat.
Yeah.
And it's lasted 4 years, and it was literally 5 days from Australia that it decided to cark itself. So we were like, oh my goodness, we're going to have to hand steer for like 4 days.
Does that mean, do you drive during the night as well, or what?
Yeah, so that would mean that you'd have to stand at the helm throughout all hours, like doing 2-hour watches for like 4 days straight of just steering a boat. And nighttime's really hard visually to steer. So
oh my gosh.
you're staring at a compass or like at a nav
Lucky it
chart.
wasn't earlier.
Yeah.
Well, we had a backup ram, like a backup auto, like a steering arm that we managed to put on, and it didn't work at first. And we were like, oh crap, we're so screwed. We're going to have to hand steer.
Yeah.
And then Julian tinkered with it, and it was because there's like computers and stuff that I think go into it. It had managed to sync up finally, and we pressed autopilot and it worked. So we got lucky.
Oh.
But we've had some
that would-
gnarly times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
I never really thought that could be like a problem, having to be up all night.
Yeah.
Like, all hours of the day just steering the boat. That'd be pretty harsh.
Yeah, I think you'd go a bit nutty. Like, I think we did 24 hours or maybe a little bit less. And that was enough to be like, oh my goodness, this is going to be something to dig deep for. But yeah, I think collectively you have a number of experiences that you just sort of get used to some tough times, like massive swells, massive like waves crashing over the boat and water everywhere. But you sort of forget about those times, because as soon as you rock up to like paradise and you're doing activities, you honestly just forget that that ever existed.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Actually, that was going to be my next question. I just imagine, like, after being out downwinding in the ocean here and you're seeing how big the swells can get here, surely there's some days where it's, like, huge out in the middle of the ocean. Like, how do you survive? That's maybe my question, because I think you just get, like, swamped.
Yeah, the boat rides them, provided depending what direction, but mostly the swell's coming behind us.
Okay.
But there was some scary times, particularly when you've got wind against current, like which you can get in the Caribbean, and especially close to Australia, there's like wind against current, so the waves get really steep. So that can be a little bit challenging, but I don't know, it's all perspective. You just get used to what you're seeing, and I used to just sit there and buckle in and signify the sign of the cross and say, hopefully we get there tomorrow.
Wow.
And didn't you go 14 days without seeing anyone?
We
across the Atlantic or something?
We did 17 across the Atlantic and 32 across the Pacific.
Oh,
32 days.
Yeah.
wow.
Yes.
That's pretty wild.
So the whole time though, all you're doing, like, because we obviously massive just foil frothers, was you're just staring at lumps that you're like, that's a super good foil lump.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Julian's like, oh, do you reckon I could jump in? I was like, absolutely not. You're not.
Did you do that at all?
No, I think we just weighed up the risk and we're like, I don't want to be on a boat by myself rescuing some clown out at the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, that'd be pretty gnarly.
If Reedy was on our boat, we would have been forced to do it. But
Yeah. I mean, 3
Hey,
people
Reedy.
might have been something different. Imagine he just comes past you in the middle of the Pacific.
Yeah, he would.
Cool. Well, when you're an hour, normally that's a pretty good time for a podcast, I find. So if you guys want to say anything more, we'll open it up. But otherwise, maybe a good time to finish.
Sure.
It's up to you.
Yeah, probably just encourage the girls in Australia, West Australia, particularly. Like, I think
If anyone's watching,
jump
on, girls. Come and find us.
Come and say hi, because I think just being in Hawaii, like seeing what the girls are capable of, and seeing that community was really inspiring. And I'd love to see. I think we'd both love to see more girls out on the water and not to be intimidated by it. And I think that's the challenge. Is there's a lot of barriers for girls for many reasons, like getting into sports and getting into the water. So as well on the West Coast, if you're a dude out there and you see some girls paddle out, like, make them feel welcome and encourage them, because we're very fortunate that our partners have forced this on us and we've got no choice, but they're also extremely encouraging. So I just think I'd love to see the sport grow, not only in numbers as a whole, but amidst the females.
Do you have any recommendations of what people could do to make, is there anything that pops to your mind? You're like, if people did this, it'd be way better. I don't know if it's a hard question. That's a tough one.
I think getting into it is it's an expensive sport as well. But it's just connecting in first, like with myself and Ange, if anyone really wants to. But
Get
just
some lessons.
Just learning to paddle and stand on a board, and then there's enough mushy little waves that people can give it a crack when they've got confidence. But or wing dinging, there's definitely opportunity, but I think just encourage people to reach out.
Awesome. That's great advice.
Yep.
Well, thanks guys for coming in. This was great. It was an awesome chat.
Thanks you.
Thanks, Hugh. Let's do some runs. All right, see ya.
See ya.